Hey, that's us on the YouTube.
Oh my gosh, it's us.
It's the Randy Karraker Show featuring Brooke Grimsley. Matthew Rocchio is here, and it is. Does spring start on Thursday? That'd be tomorrow because Matthew Rocchio's got shorts going today.
He does have shorts. It is warm outside, but it is quite windy.
50 mile an hour breezes today. If you're not in the loo, it's going to be windy and breezy here today.
Yeah, very, very breezy. It was windy yesterday. It was beautiful outside yesterday, 80 degrees,
but it's kind of windy. Yeah, you don't want to ride a bike against that wind.
It's easier to stay warm with my legs. I get colder up top, so I can wear the hoodie with the shorts in this weather, and it's absolutely perfect. And I couldn't be happier. I'm okay with that. I'm in shorts. I'm a happy person. I know people judge adult men for wearing shorts in some cultures. Judge me all you want. I'm too happy to care.
Jeff Fisher, to show his toughness to his players, would wear shorts until December.
No, I'm a coward in that. I immediately go to pants as like
you're a big
September
huge
hits.
Jeff Fisher fan though, right?
No, not at all.
Who isn't in this?
I was very happy that his team lost the Super Bowl. Sorry, Brooke. And I was very mad when he gave very boring answers when I covered/watched the Rams after he got here. And also, there's the potential allegations of collusion and ripping out my childhood. When the Rams
like when he said after he was fired by the LA Rams, that's why I took the LA job.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes. Those allegations.
Cardinals have 5 days left down in Florida. They will play the Memphis Redbirds next Monday, and then be ready for Thursday's opener against the Minnesota Twins. Pablo Lopez starting for the Twins here in St. Louis on the 27th. Looking forward to that. Tomorrow will be 1 week from opening day.
Oh, I can't wait. How about you?
I'm ready. I've got my lineup all ready. I got to send it. I got to text it over to Ollie and make sure that he's on board. Yeah.
Are you going to send it over to Ollie? Say, this is what you should do?
I'm
sure he'll appreciate that.
You know, who this was always great. And I was at events. I don't know why or how I wound up at events right before seasons, like 2 or 3 times with Whitey Herzog and Tony La Russa. And Whitey wasn't at the beginning, wasn't the biggest Tony fan. So he'd walk over with a sheet of paper and say, there's your lineup for opening day. And he'd set it on the table. You know, these pre-season Cardinal luncheons, and Whitey would go give Tony the lineup that he thinks he should use.
That's amazing. And then what did Tony do with it afterwards?
He'd look at it and then just kind of,
just put it in his pocket or something like that.
Yeah. I never looked. I never found out how often Tony agreed with Whitey.
I would love to know if they were at least similar with some of their lineups and their thinking. I'm sure they were, but it's just funny because it's, as we know, managers tend to have some ego, and so ego clashing, the egos of what they think should happen and what probably will happen.
Brooke, which do you want first, the good news or the bad news?
I want to start with the good news.
Good news is the Athletic writers in the National League Central have the Cardinals finishing second in the division behind only the Chicago Cubs.
Oh, wow. Okay, it seems like everybody else is riding off the St. Louis Cardinals as a reset year, so they have them finishing second in the division.
Second in the division.
Wow.
Want the bad news?
Yes.
They've got them going 79-83 to finish in second place.
So they're saying that the division's really bad. They're saying it's really bad.
I will say, when we're talking predictions, we had ESPN's Jesse Rogers on yesterday, and when I brought up the aspect of the Cardinals competing this year, he said, well, that's not going to happen.
He said they are going to contend.
So that's what he said?
Yes, and then he ranked it as Cubs, Brewers, Reds, Cardinals.
The way
actually, he didn't even put the Cardinals above
Cubs,
the Pirates.
Brewers,
he just said
Reds.
Cubs, Brewers, Reds. So Cardinals at the highest would be fourth in his opinion.
Right.
Wow.
The way that the 5 writers for the Athletic in the National League Central have it, and those are C. Trent Rosenkrantz, who covers the Reds for the Athletic, Katie Wu, of course, Patrick Mooney, and then they have Jim Bowden, too.
They don't have a writer for the Pirates, by the way.
Which is understandable, because they don't have a reader for the Pirates either.
There's Pirates fans out there. I feel like there should at least be one writer for the Pirates, right? Get an intern on it or something.
Get an intern. Anyway, they have the Cubs finishing in first, the Cardinals finishing in second at 79-83, Brewers third, Reds fourth, and Pirates fifth. I think the Reds will finish in second place in the division. I think that with the Hall of Fame manager, Tito Francona, and the young talent that he has on hand, if that talent gets healthy, and they made a pretty good move during the offseason getting Brady Singer from the Royals. I think they're pretty good. Here's what is written about the Cardinals, and I presume this is Katie Wu, says, the Cardinals appear to be mired in the middle of their self-proclaimed transition season. Not quite rebuilding, but certainly not all in either. They were unable to trade Nolan Arenado, even after 4 months of trying. They did not want to trade their all-star closer in Ryan Helsley, and Sonny Gray and Contreras preferred not to be traded at all and have full no-trade clauses to ensure that. Now, St. Louis will hope a healthy Contreras and a bounce-back season from Arenado can keep its division hopes alive while relying on players such as Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman, and Lars Nootbaar to take major steps forward.
So just to backtrack a little bit, they have the Cubs finishing first in the division.
With 84 victories, yes.
Okay. Now, I'm not trying to say anything against the Cubs, but why would we not take the Brewers as the team who's going to finish first in the division? They always find a way. They find a way over and over again. And I would take the over on the Brewers immediately to be able to finish in the top of the division because they always find a way. And if you even look at last year, I know that they were missing Devin Williams, of course, and Yelich, he was missing most of last season, and they still were able to win the division despite all that. And they had 5 starters miss most, if not all, of the season last year and still found a way to be successful. I would still go with the Brewers, honestly.
The thought process at The Athletic, and I don't think you're wrong, Brooke, is that their most important player was Willy Adames, who left and signed a big money contract with the Giants. The description for the Brewers says, yes, the Brewers no longer have Adames or Devin Williams. And you may have missed it, but they didn't have Corbin Burns or Craig Counsell last season. But they seem to be the Midwestern Rays, letting players go and replacing them with younger, cheaper options and still winning games. Jackson Chourio, who just turned 21, is primed for an even bigger breakout season after an impressive rookie year. And that was,
and I 100% believe that Jackson Chourio will be able to do that. By the way, they did add Jose Quintana to a 1-year contract here recently. You have Woodruff is back. Peralta is solid. Cortez is a nice addition. And you add Jose Quintana. To me, I'm going to go with the Brewers winning the division. Now, everything after that, I still think is up in the air. Your point about the Reds is really solid. I believe that will make a huge difference for them. They do mention the young talent in the division too, which I think is really exciting. It's almost like they kind of treated the division as a flyover state. You mentioned that they have the Cardinals coming in the second best with just 79 wins. So it shows you how little they think of the division, but there is a lot of young, exciting talent. Is there anybody that you see as a dark horse candidate? I wish that the Pirates, and this is where I'm going with this, with the dark horse candidate, I feel like they're due for a breakthrough. They overachieved in 2023, and I feel like they underachieved last season. And of course, you have Paul Skeens over there. What concerns me is the ownership group.
It's not good. Bob Nutting, their owner, has been pocketing money for years. Now, do they have a really nice front of the rotation in Paul Skeens and Jarrett Jones? Yes, they do. Do they have a really nice potential center fielder in O'Neal Cruz? Yes. He's going to serve them better and serve himself better in center field than at shortstop.
He started that transition last season towards the end,
which was a smart move. They have a good manager. They have a guy like Brian Hayes who has the ability to break out. It just doesn't seem. And by the way, Tommy Pham is there this year.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So you've got your leader. I think the Pirates, because of the division that they're in, if they can get Skeens and Jones to be what they're capable of and keep them healthy all year long, I think they can be in the race.
They kind of have a playoff rotation, but they aren't great at developing hitters. So it's really similar to the Cardinals, where they haven't been the best sometimes at developing their hitters at the minor league level. I think they got a new hitting coach this season, but they've had a lot of top 100 prospects that just have not panned out, and they need to be able to develop some of those bats. They have a great rotation with Skeens, but it just seems like there's also some other stuff bubbling around the surface of them not completely doing like what the Cardinals are doing right now, which is making sure that they're developing those hitters in the minor league system.
Yeah, and they, by the way, drafted Henry Davis with the first pick in the draft in 2021. So this is only 4 years ago that Henry Davis was the first pick in the draft. He is 25 years old now. Last year, second year in Major League Baseball, he hit 144 with a 453 OPS in 122 plate appearances. The year before that, he had an OPS of 653. His career OPS in 2 seasons is 590, and it seems like they've already soured on him. Why not? And found out that the first pick in the draft can't play.
Yeah. Blues fan 94 says, I think the Reds will surprise the league this year. So not just the division, but the league.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I think De La Cruz will get even better under Francona. And they've got some guys that can have bounce back years. Steer last year did not have a good year in large part because he was injured, but and Encarnacion Strand was hurt last year. They've got some guys bouncing back, and I think they have a chance to be pretty good.
Namu and the Lou says, I predict the Cardinals will fight the Pirates for last place. Goodbye, Mo. Thanks. Well, and that's another thing that they noted in the article too, and I saw some other people discussing as well, is that we're kind of going into this lame duck year with John Mozeliak as the Povo, where he's getting ready to step away. Is that something that actually affects the on-the-field product, though?
No, I don't think so, especially when it's a young team. I think there might have been, not with Goldie or, a guy like Andrew Kittredge. I think there were times, though, maybe Tommy Pham didn't like the idea of Mo. You think there were any players that were affected? Pham is just that sort of a prickly personality that
you don't say.
No, that I could see him not being a fan. But again, I don't think that would all affect his performance either. I don't think that these players are so, and this is not said in a negative way, this is just the reality of the situation. They're so self-centered because they're worried about what they're doing every day. I don't think they worry about outside influences like Mo. Some guys, like Tyler O'Neill did, right? You know Tyler pretty well, and you'd talk to him. I think he was affected by what Mo did in the arbitration hearing. I don't know if there are guys like that right now, though.
It wasn't just Mo, because then you also saw the issues with Ali Ramal. And remember, we can't forget that we have standards up to here in the Cardinals organization of what they expect for players.
The standard is the standard.
We have never seen players loafing it whatsoever.
Oh, no, that never happened.
That never
we
happened.
Don't do that here.
You could tell that there was some animosity behind the scenes, clearly, with Ollie. And remember, even John Mozeliak said that he hoped that would have stayed behind the scenes rather than all of that coming to the forefront. But the players are allowed to speak on their feelings. You could tell that there was just some tension. It seemed like O'Neill's frustration was more of the organization in general than maybe just one person in particular.
Right. Our friend Carol Blanton checks in on the chat. She says, Good morning, everyone. Why did the Cards send down Quinn Matthews? I thought we were going with the youth movement. Cards will be awesome when they third. That's fine with me. Third would be nice. They sent down Matthews for two reasons. Number one, he really only has 1 year of minor league seasoning, even as dominant as it was. He's been in the minors for 1 year, and he pitched in all four levels of the minor leagues. But the other thing is, they really think right now, I don't know if they think it's their best, but I think they think it's in their best interest to start their four veterans and then look at a guy like McGreevy or a guy like, and Palante, by the way, is your fifth guy. Four veterans, Palante, and then McGreevy and Liberatore, because they've already pitched at the major league level. They're kind of like next man up. Do you see it that way?
I do too. Yeah, I see it that way. And Quinn Matthews, we mentioned he was at Stanford. He's 24 years old, so he's not like a young guy coming into the league, but you need to give him just maybe a little bit more time in the minors. Yeah. McGreevy seems like the next in line guy before Matthews. Now, I would love to see, especially after trade deadline, fingers crossed, a situation where we'd have Matthews and McGreevy as a part of the starting rotation.
I think they should just find a taker for Eric Fetty.
Why not?
You're the Wednesday. You've got a week before you break camp on Sunday.
Yeah.
Find a taker and send him to another team and give him an opportunity to play for a winning team. And you know what? I know the Cardinals say, well, we're worried about our starting pitching depth. Don't worry about it, okay? Because you're going to have somebody else. If you let's go with a 5-man rotation. Mm-hmm. You put McGreevy in the rotation, okay? And you've got a rotation of Gray, Michaelis, Matz, McGreevy, Michaelis, Matz, McGreevy. I like this. And then Palante. And Steven Matz gets hurt. You plug in Liberatore. And then who fails? Palante fails. Then you call up Quinn Matthews.
Sonny Gray keeps giving up meatballs. Yeah. Something else is going on under the surface.
Then you plug in another young pitcher. At some point, by the way, Zach Thompson hopefully gets healthy, right?
Yes.
And Tekoa Roby turns into that guy, or at least gives you enough at the minor league level to take a look at him at the major league level. I think the Cardinals have plenty of starting pitching options this year that they can afford to move a guy like Eric Fetty. And I'm not wanting to trade Eric Fetty because I think he's bad. I think I want to trade Eric Fetty because I want to give other people a chance, and I think he's good enough to be a backup. The Texas Rangers should want Eric Fetty desperately right now. Take him off of your team. Take the $7.5 million off of your payroll and give your young guys a chance. And like you said, like Carol said, do a youth movement like you said you were going to do.
It makes a lot of sense because I feel like those guys are ready. We know that Michael McGreevy is possibly going to be a part of a 6-man rotation. Why not just go ahead and start him in the start rotation where you don't have to do a 6-man rotation and go with a smaller bullpen? I think that would work out really well for this team. Eric Fetty, the whole point that he was appealing in the first place is because it gives you another body in the starting rotation. He is capable, and that contract is super appealing to move around.
Yeah, I want to have an appealing $7.5 million contract. If anybody's got that out there, Dave Green, I'm coming cheap at $7.5 million. So I just want you to know. Okay, Brooke, I'm taking something out of these last couple of days. Mason Wynn has been sick, not in the lineup, okay? And not leading off. The leadoff hitter with a .457 on base percentage this spring, Lars Nootbaar yesterday and Lars Nootbaar today. It seems to me that the Cardinals are preparing him and us for the eventuality that the backup leadoff hitter is not going to be Victor Scott II. The backup leadoff hitter is going to be Lars Nootbaar, which should also tell us, this is what we call telegraphing, that Victor Scott II is not going to be on the opening day roster.
Yeah, I think that this is pretty clear about what's going to happen because we were talking about at the beginning of the show, we're making our opening day lineups. I still have Victor Scott II being a part of the Cardinals opening day lineup. But now, just kind of reading the tea leaves, Randy, at this point, it looks like that's just not going to happen.
Also notable that Nootbaar is leading off in center field. He's not playing left
exactly.
field, right?
So I think that tells you a lot. I believe that Victor Scott II should get the chance, but it seems like they're higher on Ciani. They like Lars Nootbaar also in that leadoff spot. And it is important. We discussed this last week with Brenden Schaeffer because it is important to have a lot happening with your leadoff spot and number 2 spot because last season, both the leadoff and number 2 spot were below average in on-base percentage. The Cardinals leadoff spot had a .292 on-base percentage, while Kansas City was only worse with a .270 on-base percentage. So, of course, it does matter. And you can mix and match with a lot of these guys. But it seems like at this point that they are going to go with Lars Nootbaar as their leadoff hitter and in center field, which is kind of their original plan. Why do you think they've backed off of Victor Scott II?
And well, I think, again, because he had a nice stretch run last year after having a miserable year here and then down there for most of the year. He had a rough time. I think they just want to see more when the lights are bright from Victor Scott II. And when Newt gets hurt, I think they'll call him up.
Yeah, I think so.
That just went boom.
It did.
This is the person who founded the Nutty Neuters of Newt Nation. She is the founder, CEO, treasurer of the Lars Nootbaar fan club. And I say, when he gets hurt, and she says, yep.
Because we all know that it's inevitable. I would love to see Lars Nootbaar. We talked about it. That hard hit rate is great. The on-base percentage, great. But he does have to be available. So I'm a realistic Lars Nootbaar fan and fan in general that he still has to be available. And they're hoping that this season that he would be completely healthy. Topher Rock says, seems like they might be choosing Burley over VS2 just in terms of getting Burley at bats. That's another great point here of making sure that Alec Burleson's bat gets into the lineup.
Of all of the young hitters, I would rate right now Brendan Donovan as the most established and accomplished of the young hitters.
Makes contact.
I would have Burleson number 2.
He doesn't strike out a lot.
Right.
He really doesn't.
And he's been there. I like Nootbaar, but Nootbaar has not been a great hitter. He's given peripheral numbers, but I am of the opinion that Burleson established himself before the All-Star break enough last year that he deserves that opportunity. Yes, they want to get him at bats, but also they kind of know that he can be productive.
And so Snipes 127 says, Topher Rocks, why would Burley not get at bats? He was one of the best hitters on the team. Now, to the point of Topher Rocks, it seems like Alec Burleson is the one who's getting squeezed out of this situation. So that's why we're discussing that, because Alec Burleson seems to be the odd man out. Even though he doesn't strike out much, he was the only player returning from last season with over 20-plus home runs. You would think, theoretically, you want him in the lineup every single day, but because Nolan Arenado is still here, it squeezes everything else.
Right.
It's the roster construction currently does not allow Alec Burleson to get everyday at-bats unless you free up and you don't have VS2. There's a lot of just mixing and matching with this roster construction because Arenado is still here.
We know that you want to see Matthew Rocchio in the bubble. We know that. But for whatever reason, he's being reticent. And
he's camera shy.
Maybe he's camera shy. But he does want you to hear his voice.
He's
here.
Bubble shy.
Bubble shy. There we go. What do you got for us, Matthew?
There. You happy?
It's a big
happy. There he is.
Bubble.
I love that bubble.
It's not for this layout, but fine. I'm in the bubble. Yeah, there. See, Randy. Yo, way to play into the bubble. Thank you so much for doing that. I'm glad, Brooke, you mentioned the fact of why Burley's being squeezed out, which is because Arenado's here. You're like nodding your head at me like a Muppet. That was fantastic. Like, just perfectly like a Muppet, but my bigger question is, why? I guess it's just because
we want Bubblehead.
VS2 was so inconsistent as a center fielder that you don't want to play him and Burley at the same time in the outfield. Is that the thought process? No, I mean defensively. I mean, Siani was 2 innings away from being a Gold Glover, and if you look at actually VS2's numbers, and I know a lot of people say beyond the numbers, he takes bad angles and his speed makes up for it and things like that. Is that because if the phrase? I understand the thought process.
I think they're comfortable
overall in the roster, but I just feel like if you're going to put Burley in left field, having the speed of Victor Scott in center field kind of makes sense. I feel like that's a good combo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think they dislike Victor Scott. I think they like him a lot, but for what you said, they just want him to get more experience. And like you mentioned, a guy that, and they think that he's a really good outfielder.
Yes,
but he's also inexperienced.
Mm-hmm.
You also have an inexperienced right fielder. So what happens when you have 2 guys that are taking a bad angle on a ball hit to right center?
We saw what happened last season, which happened in spring training, where you had Jordan Walker demolishing Dylan Carlson. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That happened.
That was not great.
Not great reads on the ball there. So I wanted to bring up these numbers when you're talking about leadoff hitter, where we were discussing with Lars Newbar, because I saw someone in the chat mention that Lars Newbar makes sense as your leadoff hitter. And you're not wrong, because Donovan has a career 340 on-base percentage as a leadoff hitter. Newbar has an even better career 358 on-base percentage when hitting first.
I just want to utilize the athleticism on this team in conjunction with the new rules. So I want to see Victor Scott as my leadoff hitter and Wynn hitting second, because then I want to have the manager turn him loose and run like the wind, like the 1985 Cardinals did. I don't know that they'll ever do that.
But why would you not?
Right. If you have that ability.
Why not?
Right?
You do have that ability.
Yeah, and the pitcher can only throw over a couple of times. They should have Vince Coleman in camp working with these guys on stealing bases. Oh, by the way, not a bad idea. But yeah, it seems to me like if you can get those guys on base and let them run, and then you have some decent middle of the lineup hitters behind them, then you could all of a sudden hit Nootbaar third, have Wynn hitting second, Nootbaar third, whether it's Contreras or if Walker ever turns into a hitter hitting fourth, and you go from there. You've got a lot of really good options. Brooke, I think you and I both see the opening day lineup very similarly, at least at the top, right?
Yeah, I think at the top,
let's go with I'll give you mine and you give me your number one through.
Okay.
I've got Wynn leading off at shortstop.
That's what I have.
That's it. This is for the game against the Twins. I've got Newt in center field.
I had him in left field initially. Now, this is what I was hoping for, not exactly what I think is going to happen.
I have Contreras at first, hitting third.
That's what I have.
I have Gorman hitting fourth as your DH.
Yes.
Okay. Arenado hitting fifth.
Yes.
Playing third. Donovan hitting sixth as your second baseman.
Yes.
J-Dub hitting seventh in right field.
That's what I have.
And then I have Burley in left field hitting eighth.
I have VS2 as your center fielder, which it seems like it's not going to happen whatsoever.
Okay. And then my number 9 hitter, we are going to turn the page back to the leadoff hitter.
Oh, it's with Paez. That's who I have as my catcher for opening day too.
There we go.
I'm glad that you got that. Yeah, the only big difference is that I'm still hanging on to the fact that I think VS2, when you're talking about turning guys loose, by the way, Victor Scott II stole 93 bases in the minors. That's a guy who can just turn it loose. If you're going to have a really skilled athletic team, which they have the ability to be that, if you have VS2 here, if you have Mason Wynn, you have a lot of guys who are quick. Why not just turn these guys loose? Let
me tell you something. One of the reasons that you might like the idea, I know there's a lot of you that love the idea of Chaim Bloom taking over, but Chaim Bloom is a guy, and you might not think this, but he loves the running game, and he will advocate for the running game. Whoever his manager is, whether it's Ollie or somebody else, he'll advocate for the running game to be utilized and for the new rules in the last couple of years to be taken advantage of.
Yeah, that's what you need with this young team. If you're saying that you're doing a full youth movement, you have to evaluate that talent. I'm looking at these guys. I've seen what they've been able to do with the minors. I know that there's a clear adjustment to the majors, but VS2 can steal some bases. The bags are bigger. Why not take advantage of it, especially when you have some quick young guys on your team?
Right. You've got that extra fewer 6 inches to deal with. You might as well take advantage of it. Topher Rocks says Burley will DH, and Brenden Schaeffer will join the show at 10:30. Yes, sir.
I just
bubble.
People
want the bubble.
The Burley comment just bothers me because, like, we just talked about why this is a problem and why Burley won't DH is because Arenado's still at third, which means Brendan Donovan's still at second, which means Nolan Gorman is your DH. And to Randy's point, we talked about this off the air. The future of the Cardinals is going to be determined by whether or not they are able to develop significant middle of the order pop in the form of Nolan Gordon and or Jordan Walker. No one's questioning whether or not we're going to see them try to get Jordan Walker 500 at bats. They're going to do it with Nolan Gorman. So my thing is that I agree with you, Topher Rocks. I would love to see Burley get a lot of at bats this year at DH. But that they're not going to cut in to Nolan Gorman with a guy who's 3.5, 4 years older. It's not going to happen. They're going to give Gorman as much runway as possible this season.
You are right. And we get this one from the real third man one. After a year or so, Donovan sacrificed OBP for something like power. You know who else that happened for? Matt Carpenter. And I don't think it worked out well. Sure, he had a year where he hit 36 home runs.
That was fun. We had, the salsa that one year.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Because he had, 2 or 3 good months. Yeah. But he was so much better of a player when he would work at bats, take a walk, hit the ball the other way into left center. And you are right, the real third man won. And that needs to change. And I hope that's something that Brant Brown can change. I know that players get paid for the home run, but this is a guy, if they want to win, this is a guy that would be so much better getting back to that rookie year 394 on base, or the second year even 365 on base. But he did look like a guy to me last year that was swinging for more power.
But it's all about trends, right? Because what are all the players trying to do? They want to be able to rack up those home runs because that's what teams care about. We've heard for so many years with the Cardinals, exit velo, launch angle, they're focusing on home runs. They don't care how much you strike out. Look at Nolan Gorman last season, who struck out a lot. I can't remember what exactly the percentage was, but
37%, Brooke.
Okay, yeah. So remember, they let Nolan Gorman do that for a while because of that possibility of power. That's where the league has been going. That's why those players really start to focus on it. And I don't think it's coincidence that sometimes for some of these players, including in Donovan's case, it happens around the time when arbitration is coming up too. Because then what do they hear in arbitration, Randy?
They hear that he's not a home run hitter. He's just a utility guy.
And so then why does their mindset change after that? Oh, because that's what you want. That's what's going to get me the money. So I have to focus on what's going to get me the money.
We're going to have Brenden Schaeffer join us to talk a little bit more Cardinals in a moment. But I'm wearing my 2019 Stanley Cup champions pullover here. The Blues win over the Predators last night, 4-1. Brooke, are you starting to get any 2019 vibes from this team?
There's a lot of veteran leadership in this group. And I think that's the only way that I could compare it to 2019. Nothing will ever compare to 2019 Blues. Also, Joel Hofer, completely solid in net. Yeah, Hofer, Hall of Famer there. Yeah. Joel Hofer,
my phone
fantastic.
did that, by the way. The reason that I do that is because when I was writing Hofer, I think I was texting with Chris Kerber, and we were going back and forth about Hofer, and my phone actually predicted HOF in capitals and then ER.
It's in the stars for Joel Hofer to be a Hall of Famer. We're saying that here first on the Rated Karraker Show, but 3 wins in a row from them. Remember that stretch of time where the Blues couldn't get 3 wins in a row this season, and then they've been able to break through? I was really worried about how this group would look without Karraker, but another multi-point game for Justin Falk. Justin Falk has really stepped up. That's why I think when you're talking about any relation to that 2019, you have these veterans who are really carrying this group forward. And then you have the other guys like Neighbors and Kyrou really stepping up too. You need all those guys working together in conjunction.
And Dylan Holloway.
Yeah, and Dylan Holloway just continues to impress me. So
I'm with you.
Yeah, the Holloway Kyrou connection, I really like to see that.
Yeah, and the Blues, They didn't gain or lose any ground last night because Calgary won at New York against the Rangers, and then Van Blanking Vancouver, they went to they were at home and they beat Winnipeg 6-2.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've seen the video. It's going all over social media right now. The Blues put it out about the players kind of talking about the feeling in the locker room right now. And Brenden Shin said that it hasn't felt like this good, this connected as a group in years. And I think that says a lot.
Yeah, I agree. And our friend, well, not friend of this show because he was fired by the time this show started, but Drew Bannister.
I was like, where are you going with this?
We love you, Drew.
I
think the Blues would probably be 10 games out of a playoff spot if they hadn't made this change.
I just feel bad for Drew Bannister. He did nothing wrong.
No.
It was just, that they were waiting for Jim Montgomery at any moment.
Some people try their hardest and it's still not good enough. You just aren't as good.
Or sometimes wrong situation, just wrong situation, wrong time. I'm trying to think about, maybe I'm still in my feels a little bit about us being let go, Randy, but I kind of think of like, it was just the wrong time for us. Yeah, you see, so I can get like Banny's point a little bit.
Okay. I'm glad somebody does.
Somebody has to advocate for Bannister. Where is he now, by the way?
Banny, I don't know.
That's a great question. If I was him, I would go on vacation. I would do like a whole, remember Cliff Kingsbury just went to Thailand for a year?
Yeah, that's the play. Yeah, go into the darkness. Hey, you see the little bird there? That's a great logo. Cards Hub 365 is powered by. Show them what we're doing here. Oh, well, we'll show you.
No, it's just you were talking, so I took it as a snack break opportunity.
Cards Hub 365 is powered by Gray Bar. Coming up today at 3:00 right here on Sports Hub STL on the YouTube page. You will live it live as the Cardinals post game after their game against the Nationals will take place. You can also get the show on demand from YouTube following the live broadcast, as well as on Apple, Spotify, or any other major podcast outlet. Cards Hub 365, daily Cardinals content right here on Sports Hub STL, powered by Gray Bar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. All right, we told you. Okay, so here's what happened. These are delicious. Let's...
Randy wants to be back on camera. There we go.
There we go. So we've got Samoas here, and Matthew has not partaken yet. I have. Brooke has. And then we've also got these new Adventurefuls Girl Scout cookies. These are indulgent brownie-inspired cookies with caramel-flavored cream and a hint of sea salt.
Oh,
so
open those bad boys up.
That was the snack break.
Well, first.
Here you go, brother. Hold on.
No, I wanted one first.
Oh, you'll get one? Oh, she wanted the first one. Okay.
Yeah.
Of course you got it.
Is Brenden here?
Yeah. Okay, where's Brenden? Brenden.
There
he is.
Which girl?
What's going on? I see the Girl Scout cookies. I thought for a second about leaving my chair, pretending that I was on the way to the studio to get the Girl Scout cookies, but I decided I'll wait till after the interview, and then I'll maybe come your guys' direction. I like all the flavors. Samoas are good.
Don't be Switzerland here. You got to pick one.
I mean, if Thin Mints, I really appreciate if I can put them in the freezer first. Samoas, the ones I can eat probably a full sleeve of though are the shortbread cookies. I even forget the name of them, but those I could just kind of pop those like mints and just keep going through those. Trefoils, I think they're called. I don't even know if they still do those, but those I really like.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Good choice. Okay, you've heard our conversation here. First of all, what do you think about my suggestion, my belief that the Cardinals' backup leadoff hitter to start the season is going to be Lars Nootbaar?
Yeah, I would submit maybe even Brendan Donovan as a possibility with Newt batting second. I don't know if that's something that they would consider because of the left, but we talked about this. We've all talked about this. Mason Wynn, we really think he's going to be a star in St. Louis, but when you look at his numbers last year from an on-base standpoint, probably not quite on par with what you want from a contending leadoff hitter, right? And so is there this element of, well, he's kind of had a slow spring, dealing with a little bit of the wrist thing right now. Do you consider plopping somebody with a little bit more of an on-base prowess up there? I think Nootbaar would be a good candidate. I think Donovan, you could put either of those guys up there, in my opinion, Randy, and have them go 1 and 2. And I also don't really get bothered by the left to start things off because they're both relatively equal against right-handed versus left-handed pitching. They're not as splitty as some of the other lefties on the roster, like a Burleson was last year, or even like a Nolan Gorman. So I don't hate the idea at all. I know we all submitted our lineups for our opening day predictions, and I did keep Mason Wynn up at the top in mind just because it's kind of been the way that Ollie Marmol's done it through spring. but I wouldn't mind throwing it back to like the end of 2023. It seemed like they got in a bit of a roll with those two lefties at the top.
Let's, Matthew, do you have that graphic? Can you put that up there, our lineup graphic? We've got this, and I'm with you, Brenden. I am of the belief that Mason Wynn will get a long leash as the leadoff hitter because of what he did last year and because of what the organization feels about him, that he is solid enough to get on base, and I think they will let him run a little bit more this year, too.
Oh, we lost Brenden. Maybe it's because we were working on the graphic.
Are we there? Did the graphic?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay.
So, do you buy into that Wynn will get a really long leash?
I mean, in terms of leadoff or just in general? Because I mean, he's going to play
as a leadoff hitter. Yeah, he's definitely going to play.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see them going a couple of different directions because let's say Nootbaar ends up being your center fielder, and I know it could end up being Victor Scott. It could be one. It could be one or the other. But if it's Nootbaar, I kind of wonder. You don't really have a lot of other 9-hole caliber hitters. You know, a lot of us. I put Burleson 9. I was the only one to do that, and I don't really even believe it. But I'm also kind of looking through it going, I don't really know who else bats 9th. They could stick Walker down there. A lot of us had Victor Scott in the lineup, and so I think that would be the easy call. It's a little bit tricky though if you end up with Nootbaar in center field and no Scott in your lineup. Like who bats 9th? Rammer had it that way, and he went with Jordan Walker, and it could potentially be that. But I think you could also, you could stick Wynn down there and go double up on the lefties at the top. I don't know that the leash will be extremely long if they go with Nootbaar in center. If they don't, I think it could be a longer leash for Wynn because him and Scott can be kind of interchangeable, and Wynn would maybe be the guy that gets more deference because he is 1 year to the veteran, if you will, as a starter relative to Victor Scott.
So we're looking at the lineups 1 through 9. I have to resubmit mine because I initially have Victor. I was doing it more of the approach of what I think will happen versus maybe, or what I would want to happen rather than what will probably actually happen for opening day. And we were discussing this, but just kind of reading the tea leaves, it seems like Victor Scott II will start the season now in the minors. I thought that he was having a great spring training, that he might be able to break through where he would start the season with the big league club.
And it's tough, Brooke, because I think it comes down to like a guy like Alec Burleson. If they've already said we're playing Gorman, we're playing Walker, those guys get an opportunity to see what they can do. It's kind of unspoken. Burleson's going to have that chance too. The problem is, where does he play if Victor Scott is your center fielder? Because everybody gets shuffled. Nootbaar to left, Donovan to second, Gorman to the DH role. And I think Burleson is a guy that they're going to prioritize over Victor Scott for the time being. One injury happens to any of those positions, or to say like an Arenado, and suddenly the problem fixes itself. Victor can play center. You can find a way to get both Gorman and Burleson in the lineup as well. But for right now, with everybody healthy, it does become a little bit tricky. So I made the lineup in the mindset that it's going to be Nootbaar in center field, whether I personally agree with that or not. I think it's the way that they'll be leaning. And I just wish I would have had a better feel for that bottom of the order. Honestly, I think I'm pretty close with my lineup. If I had to change one thing, I would put Burleson right behind Donovan and say they go left, right there at 5-6, and everybody else slides down a spot. That might be the exact lineup, but I don't know. I haven't asked Ollie Marmol, so I guess we're all just guessing.
And I'm just wondering if, with their desire to get the most out of Gorman and Walker, if they might move those guys up. And that's one of the reasons that I have Gorman up in the 4-hole is, and by the way, I did have Walker 8, so I'm not completely married to this, but those guys get more at-bats the higher they are in the lineup. And it's interesting, if you look at all of our lineups, the Cardinals have a lot of guys with ability. The only guy that I really think doesn't have the ability to be a really good hitter of all of these people that are in these cells, I think it's Pages. I think everybody else has the ability to be a pretty decent offensive player.
And I even think with Pages, he can be kind of like early career Yadier Molina, where he can give you some clutch hits now and again, even if the total numbers aren't super, well calibrated to everybody else. But I agree with you. Like, that's what I had a hard time with. I don't think Alec Burleson is going to bat 9th, but as I was making it out and trying to make it go left, right, and do some of the things, the principles that we believe the Cardinals will do, I had a hard time figuring out the end of that. That's why I said, maybe Burleson up at 6, and I would lock that in relative to what I put there on the screen. But you're right. I mean, especially, and look, Victor Scott, I don't know what you'll get from him offensively this year. Maybe he will emerge and really be ready to take on that role. But if you go with Nootbaar in center, I'm looking at my 1 through 9 and going, I think everybody in that group has the ability to be league average or potentially even a little bit or a lot better, depending on who we're talking about. And that's an exciting thing, Randy. But for a team that ranked 22nd in runs scored last year, they have to put potential into practice this year with it when it comes to the lineup.
So we were discussing this earlier because The Athletic has an article right now looking at the Central Division. They had the writers, except for a writer for the Pirates, because they can't have a writer for the Pirates. I guess I said, can't you just put an intern on that or something to just have a little bit of coverage, considering that Paul Skeens is over there? But they have the Cardinals finishing second in the division. And you and I discussed this last week, Brenden. You actually probably agree with that, honestly, that the Cardinals could finish pretty high in the division, because when we're looking at the lineups, and we just mentioned this, some of these guys have a lot of potential. If everybody's reaching their potential at the same time, theoretically, this team could do better than they did last season, because you just lost Paul Goldschmidt. You get Wilson Contreras in the lineup every single day. Hopefully he'll be able to stay healthy. That should help. Paul Goldschmidt had a down year offensively. Do you think that that's too far off to think that the Cardinals could finish second in the division?
I don't think it's far off. And I guess it helps too that now we have the benefit of knowing the Cubs, starting a little bit slow against the Dodgers in that Japan series. But I do caution people to say, like, who are the really bad teams in this division? I don't have a great answer for that. I think a full season of Skeens means the Pirates could be better than 76 wins. That's what they had last year. I think Terry Francona in Cincinnati means that could be a team that's just as good or maybe even a little bit better than it was last year. So the risk there is I don't see a lot of just total dog level teams in this division. But at the same time, we see the potential with the Cardinals. We've looked at their lineup. I honestly think if anything's going to hold the Cardinals back, it's maybe the starting pitching. Some of the guys that we're counting on to say, hey, he's going to be a 3.5 ERA. He's going to be, a stable guy in the rotation. If they have some injuries or if they have some drop off from like a Sonny Gray, who was maybe not what he expected last year, but still pretty good on the overall numbers. Eric Fetty, people view, he wasn't really that good when he came over. He had a 3.7 ERA. So if those guys regress back, maybe that's where you come into a little bit of trouble, some regression for the bullpen. But I think on paper, there is a lot to like about this Cardinals team to at least kind of be in that middle of the division.
Brenden, I'm not a fan of a six-man rotation for this particular team because of the veteran presence and the guys that are set in their ways. And I think if you go to a six-man rotation, you still have to keep Gray and Michaelis at the very least on their fifth day. And then all of a sudden, you're moving guys back to a seventh or eighth day. I just don't, especially with 3 off days in the first 15 of the season, I don't think a six-man rotation really works for this group.
I would be shocked to see it. I think you'd be really trying too hard to do a little too much to fit a guy in the rotation that deserves to be there in Michael McGreevy. But I also think you can just count your blessings, right? That's an approach you could take and say, we've had for 10 years in a row a starter go down in spring. And if one doesn't end up on the injured list to begin the season, just be grateful for that and say, Michael McGreevy, be ready. You'll make a couple starts in Memphis, but I bet you'll be here before the end of the month of April, and try to go and approach it that way. I don't think you move him to the bullpen. I don't think you libify him and try to do what they've done with Matthew Liberatore in recent years, where he's kind of back and forth as a swingman. I don't think that's the best thing for his development. But I think over the long haul, you can have the expectation that it's not what you pick, but you're going to have somebody probably come up with an injury. Keep McGreevy on that turn. Keep everybody on every fifth day. Look, you're paying Sonny Gray enough money. I know he's had a rough spring, but that's a guy you got to see every fifth day, to your point, Randy. So for me, I agree with you. I don't think that the six-man is something that makes perfect sense. I understand the impetus behind it. You want to get McGreevy in there. He's earned it. Just let's see how those first few weeks go. And remember the long haul. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint of a baseball season. McGreevy's going to make a lot of starts for this Cardinals team in the summer. It just doesn't have to be the first week of the season.
Hold on a second. Let me type that out. Can you say that again? It's a marathon.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. I've even got a fantasy baseball league. The title is "It Ain't a Sprint." You got to know that it's going to be a 6-month season.
Okay. All right. Hey, great stuff as always. Thank you very much. When's the next time we hear you on the Cards Hub?
I believe I'll be on there this afternoon, breaking things down. And I got to tell you guys, I cannot wait until we're talking about games that count. But for now, we're still talking roster and the machinations the Cardinals could go with that lineup.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. Great job, sir. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.
Brenden Schaeffer, part of our team here at Sports Hub STL. And we're going to have somebody else on the Sports Hub STL team. Have you heard this? They aren't telling us who. It's
a big secret. Oh, there's our faces.
And there's, I guess we're going to have somebody else.
What is that photo of you from?
I don't know. Somewhere on the internet.
Do you? I don't think I've ever seen this photo of you before. Not that I have seen every photo of you. I should start with that. That sounded really creepy on my part. But yeah, this isn't a headshot that I've seen of you before. Yeah, do you recognize like the time?
I was probably out riding a bike somewhere. And that might be a 101 ESPN t-shirt.
Okay. Yeah. So we have a third guest contributor that will be joining us on Friday.
Friday, we're going to figure out. We got to figure out who it is. I don't know.
It's a big secret. We have to get to the bottom of this. Yeah. You never know who it could be. So you can send your predictions into the chat too, by the way.
How about Jason Gordon? Vandal has the Cardinals tied with the Pirates for last and not breaking 75 wins. I hope you don't believe that, Jason, because we're Sunshine Lollipops here on the Randy Karraker Show, and we don't believe in last place. We just aren't last place thinkers. The Cardinals, they've gone a long time without finishing in last place.
No, yeah, they haven't. I think that some people though are just tired of being middling.
Yeah,
they would rather be either tank all the way, is what I keep seeing from people on the chat, or either being the best.
They are not going to be the best.
No, they'll be middle of the pack. Can they be at least a little bit better than last season? Theoretically, yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, I do think that having Willson Contreras at first could be a good thing for this team, a difference maker.
Agreed.
Because if you have him healthy, he's playing first base, theoretically he should be healthier, then you have his bat in the lineup every single day.
Right. And if he's healthy and you get that bat, and the bat has been even better this spring, he's hitting 360 or 370. I really do think that he can be a difference maker.
Burleson is so slept on from Harrison. He is. It seems like they're going to find a way to get him in now into the lineup, in the open day lineup, because I think we were worried about him just starting on the bench. He is a great guy when it comes to not striking out, and getting him more at bats, I think, is beneficial because you're going to need some sort of pop, and he has that ability to have a little bit of power.
I just find it amazing, and this is I am as guilty as anybody here. That the Cardinals, when they got Nolan Arenado, I was so fired up, and then obviously finishes third in the MVP voting just 2 years ago. 2 years ago this offseason, he was coming off finishing third in the MVP. And now we've reached a point where, you know what, Arenado's messing up our future. We can't do what we want to do and get players ready because of Nolan Arenado. It's just a weird dynamic.
It is a weird dynamic. It really is. This could be Ben says, it's me. I'm the special guest. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, you are very welcome.
So send in your request on who you think that it will be. Who will be the secret guest on Friday? Now, I want to go back because we've been doing this all week about ranking the opening day starters for the Cardinals. And so far, you haven't seen Sonny Gray. So I'm assuming that he's going to be in your top 5.
You think?
So we've been doing this since Monday, ranking Randy's opening day starters across the league. We've already done from the bottom up, and there's Sonny Gray right there, 16th.
So I've got Shota Imanaga as my number 20, Jose Barrios of the Tampa Bay Jays.
Oh God. Oh God.
Toronto Blue Jays.
Trauma. Sorry. Anytime I hear Jose Barrios, it brings back trauma.
Barrios. Mackenzie Gore at number 18, Carlos Rodon, and this is based upon what they've done recently. And then Sonny Gray as my number 16. Yeah. 16th best opening day starter.
I think this is very fair. Now, I think that a lot of people would think that you were going to have him lower, Randy, just because they, for whatever reason, think that you hate Sonny Gray when you've been nothing but realistic with Sonny Gray. You mentioned before the season started that he wears down, especially in the heat. And what did he do last season? He wore down in the heat. And we've seen he's a little fellow. You weren't wrong about that either. All that you stated was that he just wasn't an ace.
Yeah. And that's it. Carol says when the heat kicks in, Sonny will struggle like last year. He cannot deal with these hot and humid days here in the Lou.
Can I say that as a Tennessean, I'm a little disappointed in that because it is hot. It's humid in the South. Like it's literally humid in Tennessee. He grew up in Smyrna. Now he went to my rival high school. So maybe that's what it is. If he went to Oakland High School instead of Smyrna High School, then maybe he would have figured it out. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, you would think that he would be able to be fine with the heat. He grew up in Tennessee.
Right. Yeah. He should be able to handle it.
It's hotter in Tennessee, in my opinion, in the summertime. It gets way more humid. It gets way more humid than here in St. Louis.
I have no doubt that he should be able to handle it. You know, part of it, the other part, and one of the reasons he might have a really good year here, maybe one of the reasons that he wanted to stay, is that he's been a really good pitcher when he's pitched for teams that didn't have high expectations. Like when he was with Oakland, he was really good. but they never expected to win. Gets to Cincinnati. Well, then he goes to New York.
That's
implosion.
And
the high expectations.
There's always
right?
high expectations.
But goes to Cincinnati. They don't expect to win, and he's great. Goes to Minnesota. They don't expect to win. He's good. Now here, he might have a really, although he is 35 now, but he might have a really good year because I think that he's a guy that probably does not deal particularly well with the pressure of winning championships.
Yeah, the pressure of winning championships or those high expectations. We've even seen from Nolan Arenado that he has mentioned a lot. The expectations are really hard. Remember when he was talking about that he just worries about the young players here in St. Louis, the expectations surrounding it. Some people, what do they say? Pressure builds diamonds. Some people don't turn into diamonds in those situations. And now that you know that there isn't as much pressure this season, I can see why he'd want to say.
Yeah. And he's talented guy, right? Very talented. But when the chips are down for whatever reason, it just hasn't worked out for him. This is totally Trav. I'm surprised you have Gray that high at this point in time. Well, but look at the list there. Right now, I don't think that Rodon is better. Rodon had that great free agent year, but he's in and out of the lineup. You don't see him all the time. And the most important ability is availability, as we say here. Mackenzie Gore, really talented. Gore, we might get to June, and I'll take Gore ahead of Gray. Barrios, same thing. He's up and down. I'd rather have Sonny Gray right now. Imanaga, no, he's done it for half a season. Bieber coming off the injury. Hunter Green hasn't put it all together yet. Peralta has had really good moments. Got off to a great start last year. Was terrible after the All-Star break. Shane McClanahan. I had Kyle, but it's Shane McClanahan coming off the injury, so I just don't know. Kikuchi didn't do very well. That's me, Matthew. Don't worry about it. Matthew's getting upset. Kikuchi didn't do well. Oh, that hurts. Oh, he just cursed. Severino's had the one good year coming off of the injury. Eflin, Freeland, Holmes, Burke. I think that Gray is clearly better than pretty much everybody that he's above on that list.
Somebody said the rest of the league didn't want you. Samuel Howe said that. I'm thinking that's in regards to Sonny Gray. Do you think if the Cardinals, if he did want to go, that there would be plenty of team, especially when we talked about the Yankees have dealt with injuries. The Mets have dealt with injuries. I mean, there is a lot of injuries that have already happened to starting rotations across the league this season. Sonny Gray would be picked up by those teams.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. What did he make? $10 million last year. So he's due 65 over the next two. That would not be a bad buy for a lot of teams that are interested in a starting pitcher. Can I give you a fun fact, a fun statistic?
Yeah.
This is from a guy named Jim Passon on Twitter. It's Passon. It's not Jeff Passon.
Oh,
it's Jim Passon.
Is he related?
I don't think so because the last
it's a
name
different spelling.
Different spelling. But he does this every year. Most recent season having the worst record in the National League. Last year it was Colorado, 2024. Washington, 2022. Arizona, 2021. Pittsburgh, 2020. Miami, 2019. Last season for the franchise having the worst record in the National League. Giants, 2017. Reds, 2016. Padres tied with the Reds that year, having the worst record in the National League. Cincinnati and the Padres in 2016. Philadelphia, 2015. Houston, 2012. The Cubs, 2006. Last time they finished with the worst record in the National League. Milwaukee, 2002. The Mets, 1993 was the last time the Mets finished with the worst record in the National League. Still haven't heard the Cardinals yet. Dodgers, 1992. Last time the Dodgers finished with the worst record in the National League. Atlanta, 1990. It's the last time the Braves finished with the worst record in the National League. Cardinals, 1918.
Oh my gosh. So when you're talking about high expectations, case in point there.
Yeah, you don't finish with the worst record in the National League.
Yeah. I think that's where those high expectations come from, which makes, this whole transition period a little weird still to get used to because you just had so much success. But to the Athletics' point with those writers, there's not much that the Cardinals lost. They re-signed they kept Ryan Helsley. And maybe they move him at the trade deadline. Maybe they move Arenado at the trade deadline. Now, that could change projections for things. But the division, they don't see them doing that well anyways.
Do you agree with me that if Nolan Arenado is not traded at this deadline or before, if he's not traded during the 2025 season, that he will finish out this contract with the Cardinals? I think that is the case.
I think so too. I think so, because I thought we discussed this where you had the Houston Astros bubbling back up to the surface, a possibility that they would talk about things. I honestly think at this moment the Astros have a better chance of making the playoffs than the Cardinals. I'm just being realistic for the season, especially with the addition of Walker, that would be even more appealing to Arenado. They even move Altuve to the outfield, which I don't know if you saw that the other day. That was a little funny.
Yeah.
You notice I said little.
Struggles.
Yeah, that's he's a wee little man. So that was tough to see in the outfield. But at the same time, I can see Arenado staying here because when you had those supposed talks re-engage with the Astros, I thought, okay, if he's going to move, this is, I think, the right situation for him to move.
If ever there was one, and he didn't know how everything was going to play out, if ever there was one of recent vintage, there's no doubt in my mind that this was the time. And now with the money being what it is and his age being what it is, if he has a great first half, the Cardinals would be able to trade him perhaps on the 31st. But if teams don't want him after this, then they aren't going to want him after the season. A great last 2 months of the season isn't going to reignite the interest in the services of Nolan Arenado. By the way, I also want to give you one other thing that has happened during the course of this spring, and one of the reasons that the Astros might not want to trade for Nolan Arenado to play third base. Mm-hmm. One of the players that they got in the Kyle Tucker trade is a third baseman by the name of Cam Smith, who's at .407 with a 500 on base and an .815 slug this spring.
Oh,
a third baseman. Yeah. Remember the name Cam Smith for Houston. He's been really good, 3 homers during the spring. And he's apparently going to be their starting third baseman. And
he's 22 years old.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Cam Smith probably is going to prevent Nolan Arenado from even having a chance to wind up in Houston.
Yeah, I see the report right now that he has a good chance of making the Astros opening day roster. Yeah. With those numbers, that will get you somewhere. Ralph says, I always said that I'm a fair weather. Oh, it went away from me. There it is. I am a fair weather Cardinals fan since I was born in 1975.
So you remember your initiation to baseball might have been the 82 World Series, certainly Whitey ball, and it's been good. So I get it, because during your lifetime, you had the down period in the early 90s when Anheuser-Busch didn't want to own the team anymore. And then your next down period was, 2016, 17, 18? There haven't been many down periods. It's been easy to be a fair weather fan because it's really pretty much all you've known since you started following the sport.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Samuel Howe says it was bulletin board material for Arenado, not Gray. My quote.
Oh,
the what? Okay, this one.
Quote.
The rest of the league
it's not up there yet.
Didn't want you. Okay. That was bulletin board.
That was Arenado?
I see. Bulletin board material for Arenado, not Gray. Exactly. I think that's a good point on Arenado. We discussed this, that he probably thought there would be a little bit more buzz around his free agency possibility of the trade rumors of him going around. Do you think he was expecting a little bit more buzz around that? And then it just did not happen
especially
whatsoever.
From the Dodgers, right?
Yes. And then you had Bregman holding up things. The Dodgers, there was just no possibility for him to go over there. But I think that he probably was expecting a little bit more of a buzz.
Samuel Howe checks in on the chat. He says, we don't pay attention to spring stats, Randy. Well, Houston does.
They take those seriously.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to take them seriously. I was telling you beforehand, I care about these spring training numbers. I take them to heart. Okay.
I get it.
That's why I still had Victor Scott II as a part of my opening day lineup, because I'm not completely off board on him not getting the chance, but it seems like that's just not a possibility because of the roster construction currently the way it is right now.
Should we do the Grim Report?
Yes, it is time to do the Grim Report. So if you can bring up the tweet, Rockio, to kick this off, because if you've been paying attention, you know that we've been having some early morning baseball, and for a good cause. You mentioned the Dodgers have really been beating up on the Cubs to start the season. Yeah. I know that they just kicked things off, but the Tokyo series. But I wanted to read this tweet to you guys because it's really interesting what this person has to say about it. And I believe that he's a CBS social media person is what I saw.
The Dodgers did beat the Cubs 6-3 this morning.
Thank you. And then also was 4-1 in the first game of that Tokyo series. So Danny says on the X machine, for selfish reasons, I hate that the first official Major League Baseball games are being played completely around the globe at 4 a.m. Exhibition games are great. The international series midseason are great, but this is supposed to be America's pastime. Opening day is supposed to be ours. Danny, you look young based on your profile photo, but can we just like insert like the meme of like the old man screaming at the cloud? Because that's what you look like in this situation. What is wrong with having the Tokyo series? It looks incredible, by the way. I've been paying attention to everything that's posted on social media and seeing all that. Shohei Ohtani hit a homer today. And it is so cool to see how they do baseball over in Japan and how they embrace it. But having just a few of your games to start out the season over in Tokyo is not hurting anybody, because guess what, Danny? There's 162 games in a season. I think we'll be fine if it starts in Tokyo.
And let's make this point. It doesn't matter. America does not matter. What matters, America doesn't. No, here's the thing. Japan was able to pay off Shohei Ohtani's contract last year. The $700 million, the Dodgers were able to get that from Japan last year. In 1 year, they were able to pay off that the Shohei Ohtani contract. And they're kind of trying to globalize the game. And to your point, Brooke, there's 160 games left. If the Cardinals would start off the season with a 9-game road trip, which has happened before, and then come home, it would be no different for me than if they started with their first 2 in Japan and then opened up against the Twins on the 27th. It just doesn't make any difference to me.
Yeah, I really don't see what the issue is here. So Namu in the Lou, oh, come on. Namu in the Lou says, good point, Danny V. No, it's not a good point. Okay, Namu in the Lou, please chime in the chat why you think that it's a good point. So he actually did very quickly, said, fine. What would you say if the Cardinals opener was in Tokyo or South Korea or Australia?
If it was in North Korea, I would have a problem. But I'm okay. I'm okay with that.
You're okay with that as long as it's not in North Korea.
Yeah, they played. Did it matter last year or was it 2 years ago that they played the games in London?
No.
They've played in Mexico. It doesn't.
It's about growing the game.
So long. Yeah,
you need the game to grow.
And to that point, if baseball truly wants to globalize their sport, and they're doing a really good job. It's popular in Japan. We've had players from Australia. You want to get it going in the UK. But if you truly want to globalize your sport, then you do what the NBA did with the Dream Team, with the NHL going back to the Olympics next year, with the NFL having flag football, NFL players playing flag football in the Olympics. You allow your big league players to play in the Olympics.
Exactly. Totally. Trav says, I do get his point, though. It's like the season opener. It's like the international series, but I get his point of it being the season opener. It's a long season. Remember what Brenden Schaeffer just said, where he said it's a marathon, not a sprint? We have a long season to go. It's just a few games in the Tokyo series. And by the way, Shohei Ohtani is a global superstar. Why not showcase it over? I like the pageantry of seeing the Tokyo Dome and how they do things over in Japan. It's very different than how it is over here in Major League Baseball. If you talk to the players, I remember I talked to Lars Nootbaar about this when he went over to Japan. He thought that he wouldn't even be recognized when he first went over there. And so he was like, I'm just going to, go out of my hotel one day to go get some lunch. And he said he got swarmed by people. It's a whole different culture and how they approach the sport. And it's great to see. You have a lot of talented players coming over from Japan. We've already seen that in the past, of course, but especially right now in Major League Baseball, you have a lot of talented players who are huge in the league that are Japanese players like Shohei Ohtani. You've seen Sasaki, him coming over, Yamamoto. I mean, there's a lot of talented Japanese players here now. Why not embrace it? And of course, Major League Baseball, do you really expect them to pass on the bag that you're getting from Japan? Those Japanese advertisers are spending a lot of money, to Randy's point about getting all that money back on the contracts. They're spending a lot of money. That's more money towards the league. It's more viewership. It's better for everybody.
Namu in the Lou, the Clydesdales will get seasick. But here's another point to be made about starting it in Japan. It is great for Japan. How many people in America do you think got up to watch? I mean, especially in LA, right? If you're a Dodger fan and the game starts at 4:00 in the morning, West Coast time, I think that for most people it doesn't matter because they have no idea that the games are being played and that they're real over there. I would guess
that they're real.
Yeah, I would guess that a lot of people think, oh, they're playing an exhibition over there, and have no idea. They're completely oblivious to the idea that the actual regular season is starting. And by the way, didn't the Packers and Eagles start their season last year in Brazil?
Yes.
Second game of the season.
So even the NFL is doing the exact same thing. Yeah. It's about growing the game. I want the game to grow. I think it's a great thing. So Totally Trap says, obviously they still have they have home openers. It's just the whole point of being the season in Japan. I think it's good to have international series. Just feel like it could have been a little later is all.
Yeah. It is what it is. I think, didn't the Blues start in Finland a few years ago too? I think they opened their season with a couple of games.
I saw something too about something happening in Switzerland. Or no, Sweden. Why did I say
Was it Sweden? Okay. For the Blues?
No, recently. I'm talking about that they're doing this soon.
Okay.
Was the Ireland game the first game of the college football season? Notre Dame in Ireland game.
I forgot about
that. Was the opening game of the college football
season. And they have
a
shorter season.
They have a shorter season. It's a great point.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that it's really cool. I like to see the pageantry of how they do things over in Japan and Tokyo Dome. Shohei Ohtani, obviously him going back to Japan is huge. The other players too, Roque Sasaki, him going back. I think it's really cool to see that. It's just a few games. It's a long season. We'll all be fine.
Yeah. 2009-2010 season, by the way, Brooke. Blues and Blackhawks opened the regular season in Sweden and Finland. So even hockey has done it.
It's fine. And everybody's still going to have their opening days, you know. We're still doing that. It's just starting the season. It's technically starting in Japan.
Little bit of news here. Yes, sir.
I will just ask is because we bring up the NFL, and obviously the point of globalizing the game is money gets poured in, and then we see what the NFL has done over the last 20 years when the salary cap has gone from 170 to 330.
Yeah,
almost doubled in the last 20 years.
Yeah,
roughly
gone up 53 million in the last 2 years.
Good Lord. I guess my point is that a lot of that money that comes from the globalization of the NFL gets funneled into things like the salary cap because of collective bargaining and in revenue sharing. So I guess right now with the way baseball is built, does more international money actually equate to a raising of all boats situation?
No.
And so that's maybe the issue with this overall argument is that it isn't going to lead to the proliferation of money that the NFL has seen with the current system.
Well, but think of how many more games the NFL is playing over there. And with the number of games they're playing over there, that is extra TV money, in addition to the fact that they sell out every one of those games. And the sponsorship, it's like a Super Bowl. When each team goes to London, it's like a Super Bowl. So they get Kevin Demoff told me that when the Rams were here, when they were playing in London, they got twice as much revenue from one game in London as they would get from two games here.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So twice as much money. So
from a game. Yeah.
So one game in London was worth the money of four games in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why they were so enthusiastic about doing it. That's why the Jaguars have been so enthusiastic about doing it.
They're probably
they might move to London one day.
They're probably. I mean, are they doing 3 international games this year?
Oh no, there's 8, I think.
No, I'm saying the Jaguars. I think the Jaguars are doing 2. I think the Jaguars
only 2,
multiple.
But they're getting their new stadium. They're working on the building the new stadium.
But I imagine they're probably getting at least 2x per game, and so that makes a lot of sense now why we're doing that. I'll always laugh that they were like, we'll get more money because tourism will be increased in St. Louis by this. No, you're just getting money because you're playing the games.
Well,
in
you
London.
never know.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it equated to a few more people traveling to St. Louis to see the Rams before they left.
Yeah, no, it did. You're right. You're 100%.
Yeah, I'm sure it helps a little bit. I think it'd just be so cool to go over to like London and see like a Rams jersey or like a Jags jersey or something like that.
And that's the thing about those games. You see all 32 teams. You see jerseys from all 32 teams.
It's so cool. Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with globalizing any sport, but especially with baseball, because baseball is universal more than the NFL, because the NFL, the issue that they're facing internationally is that it is definitely America's sport. Not saying that baseball isn't, but look at all the talented players that come in from across the globe to baseball. Why not embrace that even more? You have players from the DR, you have Venezuelan players, you have Japanese players, you have South Korean players, maybe not North Korea.
Yeah, there you go.
That'd be great if we had some North Korea players.
Just one.
Yeah, just there's got to be one, right?
Gotta be, yeah.
But why not embrace that baseball is way more of a global sport than the NFL?
In terms of being played, it is.
Yeah.
I wonder how much that'll change with flag football and the fact that didn't we get the hell beat out of us in American football by other countries last year?
We don't even know what that team was, though.
No.
We don't know what that was. We shouldn't acknowledge them whatsoever.
They embarrassed us.
They did.
They did.
Yeah, they lost to Japan, I believe.
Before we get to Ask Uncle Randy, and by the way, spring springs tomorrow. Spring will have sprung tomorrow. And so with the warm weather and young love, and you might be thinking about asking a young lass out on a date, where should I take her for my first date in St. Louis? Maybe you're a young lady and said, what if a guy comes up to me in the gym and asks me to go out? How do I handle this? Brooke can help you out with that. So we're here for you. So we need your
I like how you deferred to me to help with that.
Yeah, well, because I can't help with that. But there are things I can. Dear Uncle Randy, I'm going to the grocery store. If there are young ladies in Girl Scout uniforms that are selling Girl Scout cookies, what should I buy from them? Well, I can tell you what the best Girl Scout cookie is. I've been around, So Ask Uncle Randy is coming your way on the chat. Just send us your chat question. But before we get to that, Brooke, ESPN reporting that the Minnesota Vikings have stopped talking to Aaron Rodgers and that J.J. McCarthy is going to be their quarterback. I kind of think that Rodgers might retire now.
You think so? It seems like the Steelers are still a possibility.
They are a possibility.
What about the Giants?
I wonder, if do you run that back in New York if you're the Giants?
God,
I think Russ probably winds up with the Giants.
Yeah, I could see that happening. I still think that the Steelers are a possibility, but if you're an NFL team, you saw everything that just happened with the Jets outside of the injury, but also the stuff off the field for Aaron Rodgers. Is that necessarily something that you want to deal with? And he is older, so what are you reasonably expecting out of him as a player?
You're 100% right. Here's the thing. If you're the Steelers and you just re-signed Mason Rudolph, does that hurt you, by the way, that you lost Mason Rudolph?
No. I always forget that he's still in the league.
Yeah. But
I'm always like, wait a minute, he's still playing?
Yeah. But if you're the Steelers, if it's not Aaron Rodgers, who is it?
I have no idea.
Trey Lance?
I thought they might run it back with Russell.
But if he goes to the Giants.
Yeah, I thought maybe that's what they were going to do, especially after they moved on from Justin Fields. I thought that, okay, maybe they'll bring back Russell Wilson. That doesn't really seem to be the case at this point. I don't know what they're exactly going to do.
I don't either.
In their quarterback
and
room.
Maybe they're.
And they also went all in on these receivers. You have George Pickens there. You have Metcalf there. So then who's going to be getting them the ball?
Maybe you have to overpay to trade for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. Do you think the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers would be a good fit? I still think it's happening.
I think there's a pretty good chance of it happening. And I don't think it's a good fit at all.
No, I don't either. I think it'd be great for Hard Knocks to be there for every single moment. But I could also see that maybe that's why they haven't found somebody yet, because they're trying to get something with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. And if Aaron Rodgers is going on Pat McAfee's show and complaining about things in the building, like he did with the Jets all the time, I would have to think that Mike Tomlin would be livid about that sort of activity.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that Mike Tomlin wouldn't be happy with that whatsoever. He is great, though, with working with all different types of personality.
He keeps it under wraps, though. They always kept it under wraps with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown and stuff like that.
With Rodgers, you can't.
It's front and center.
My biggest thing from this all is, what did they tell DK Metcalf last week when the trade went down? And it was like, who's going to be? Yeah, he signed the extension. What did they tell him about who was going to be throwing him the ball?
Yeah.
Maybe.
And how much did the name Mason Rudolph come up in that initial discussion, do you think?
Yeah.
It will be Mason Rudolph will be the one getting you the ball.
Yeah.
No, you can't wait to join that.
Where am I signing?
Ellipsis 150 says, no, how will Rodgers fulfill the Favre prophecy? He was supposed to play for the Vikings, then commit welfare fraud in the state of Mississippi.
Oh, there you go. That's good. I like that.
That really did happen. There was
you
one.
Can't forget the part where you blow the NFC Championship game. Like, that is a crucial part of that storyline. You have to blow the NFC Championship game.
I wanted to do one day where we said what player, what athlete ruined their playing legacy based off their career after their playing time. I think Brett Favre has to be up there.
Yeah.
To go from just like an absolute legend, and some people still like Brett Favre. I understand that, but there's been a lot that's happened with Brett Favre post playing career. Well, even during playing career.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah, there was
just
stuff
keep
that
away
happened.
Keep away from the DMs. lesson learned for everybody out there. So yes, if you have any questions for Uncle Randy, make sure that you get them in right now. Now I have one for Uncle Randy because this is a little bit, kind of TikTok, NIL love story gone wrong. And Rockio, I don't know. You are on TikTok now, so you can be a part of this drama.
You're prolific on TikTok.
Oh, I follow you. Thank you. I post about everything, including pregnancy and sports. So you'll get a little bit of, because I'm not one-dimensional, Randy. I have lots of thoughts on things.
The layers.
Yes.
Like an onion.
Like an onion. Oh, beautiful. I don't know if I want to be an onion.
I got layers.
Thank you.
Okay, so to get you into the loop of this NIL TikTok love story drama, Carson Beck, we're all fully aware of who Carson Beck is, right? Mm-hmm. He is going to the University of Miami. So he was dating a University of Miami basketball player. She's huge on TikTok. What?
Not just any Miami basketball player. He one of the highest NIL earners.
Was one of the Cavender twins?
It's
He's
one of the
Cavender twins.
Okay, so getting back to the story, he was dating one of the Cavender twins. I can't remember which one. I'm very sorry.
I bet he didn't either.
Haley and
it's Hannah and Haley. Hannah and Haley. So Carson Beck decides to transfer to Miami. He's a Florida boy, so there's a lot of other reasons why, but people thought he was transferring because his girlfriend plays at the University of Miami. So this is a beautiful NIL love story. Carson Beck is making a lot of money. She's making a lot of money on TikTok, social media, and with NIL. Well, they as a couple took a trip to Nashville, Tennessee to go out. Why you would do that? No idea. While they were in Nashville, Randy, he was Snapchatting other girls. He was Snapchatting other girls saying that they were breaking up. They were fully together in Nashville together. And she found out because the Snapchats got exposed. So now they're breaking up. Now, my question to you is, Uncle Randy, if you're going to the University of Miami, should he have even been in a relationship in the first place?
No, a quarterback. Didn't they give him a Lambo in Georgia? I think they gave him a
Sorry, guys.
And it got stolen.
Oh. If you are the quarterback of the Miami Hurricanes and you're driving a Lamborghini that they gave you at the University of Georgia, and you're presumably getting a lot of NIL money, right? That's one of the reasons that he went to Miami and decided to forego the NFL, because he was going to get paid more money at Miami than he was going to get by being a first-round pick or a pick in the NFL. He wasn't going to be a first-round pick. Yes, you say, I don't really need a girlfriend. I don't
what
need
a bag fumbling moron.
Yeah.
She's making a lot of money.
But so is he.
Yeah.
The highest paid NIL earner, her and her sister. Yeah. They're going to print money when they graduate still. Some kind of podcast
that will not make him
fashion
happy.
Line.
He's driving a Lamborghini and he's making a ton of money himself.
I know monogamy is
in Miami.
I know monogamy is not for some people, but like
you don't
get your mind right
because
dude.
She's making a lot of NIL money. You don't date her.
They could have been a power couple. They could have been the NIL power couple. But they were like Livy Dunn and Paul Skeens.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But here's the thing: if you're predisposed, like he clearly is, to Snapchatting up other girls,
then here's the thing: you don't start dating. To your point, you're right. You don't start dating somebody with this profile if you're not going to if you're going to blow it like this,
right? Yep. And social media, man, it happens. It's going to come out, right?
Yes.
And as I know from all the shows that my girlfriend watches,
which are
you're going to lose Summer House, Desperate Housewives,
okay.
not Desperate Housewives, Real Housewives. Thank you. I always say Desperate. The guy, the dude who cheats,
Desperate Real Housewives,
always loses. Yeah. Like not just like in like the scope of the show, like he loses followers, engagement, and therefore money because people hate you when you publicly dog somebody like this who they love. Like he's going to lose money. You're an idiot. To your point, Randy, if you're not going to go all in with the biggest NIL maker with the biggest profile in college sports, you can't go in at all. You can't dip your toe in at all because you're going to get burned. You're not a good enough quarterback to do this.
Thank you.
What an idiot.
Right. Here's the thing, though, is that he's probably all will be forgiven if he goes and balls out for Miami like Cam Ward did, where he's able to go higher in the draft than expected. I don't know.
It's not going to happen.
You know that people will forget about things, but do you think that Carson Beck fumbled here in this situation before the season started?
Yeah, I think it was a self-inflicted wound.
Can you imagine that? Why did they even, first of all, going as a couple to Nashville, Tennessee together? I don't know, especially as like a young couple. I'm just going to warn you. I used to bartend in Nashville. The things I would see is all that I have to say. That could be a whole story in itself.
I mean, a huge life decision mistake in Nashville. So yeah, it's a bad city to make. It's a bad city to make decisions in your romantic life. Do not make decisions in your romantic life in that area code, whatever it is.
Okay.
Yeah, 615.
Let's get to this one. I assume this is a dear Uncle Randy. If Luther Burden falls to the Chiefs, do they have to select him? I have a feeling they won't be able to pass him up, even with their O-line and D-line needs. I don't think they can. All they have to do, as long as they keep him out of Texas, he'll be fine, right? But Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy got in a little trouble in Texas. Fortunately, they're going to be able to avoid time in the pokey. But no, I don't think the Chiefs take Luther Burden if he falls to them with the last pick in the draft. I think they're okay at the wide receiver position. They need to develop some young offensive linemen. I know they signed the tackle from the Niners, but they need to keep building their defense with a top pick. They're going to need another corner, and they traded Joe Tooney. Don't forget that. So they could probably get a guard there too. I don't think the smart move for the Chiefs right now would be to take a wide receiver. As a matter of fact, if you're going to take a skill position guy, I'd be more inclined if I were them to take a running back.
It would be cool though if it could work out where you could see a Luther Burden there.
Oh, that'd be cool.
It would be so
disagree.
cool.
Yeah,
entirely disagree. It would make me sick. I would want to puke. Please never, good God, keep all Mizzou players away from the Kansas City Chiefs. Bolton, find a way to get traded. That was a great contract. I agree with you.
I know. Yeah,
great
like
extension. Ask for a trade.
Okay. How about this one from Hockey Dad Don? Dear Uncle Randy, I've been arguing with my best friend for a month straight about who's better, David Lee Roth or Sammy Haggar. Who do you prefer? Matthew, you should make a poll out of this.
I don't like when
Hockey Dad Don.
Like when Texans do that.
This is an interesting question because Sammy Haggar is our guy in St. Louis, right? Sammy is just one of the all-time greats. I think for the group Van Halen, I think David Lee Roth was a better frontman. That being said, I think as a solo act, I think Sammy Haggar is better. I know this sounds contradictory and it sounds like I am passing the buck and that I don't really have an opinion, but I do. I think for the group, I think David Lee Roth was better. I think as a solo act, I don't think there's any doubt that Sammy Haggar is better.
You know, I think that's a really good point though, because there's some people where they have great solo careers and there's others where they try to have a solo career, but they're just better in a group atmosphere. Like, I don't know, like what would you say about Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac? I love Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
But she had a great solo career.
She had a great solo career.
But do you prefer Stevie with Fleetwood Mac? Is Stevie better with Fleetwood Mac or?
I like more Stevie Nicks songs with Fleetwood Mac than as a solo artist.
Because then also the drama about you don't have that with bands anymore, you know, where you have the drama behind the scenes, all the stories going on there. I felt like it added to the songs, like Silver Springs, just like that whole performance and that song, the meaning behind the song, like burned into my brain.
I like Chris Widener checking in saying, I love Sammy, but for Van Halen, David, I agree 100 with your take. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. A lot of people agree with that. Randy has great music takes. Thank you, Sam.
I do want to point out, just because I'm not saying you're wrong. Crazy from the Heat, David Lee Roth's first solo EP went platinum, which is over 1 million sold. Eat 'Em and Smile also was a pretty big commercial success, just under 1 million sold. Skyscraper had a hit single, and he had 20 singles. 4 of them reached the top 40. His sales as a solo artist, almost right in line with Sammy Haggar, 3 million and 3.5 million pretty much for both of them.
Interesting.
Which kind of surprised me. I honestly wouldn't have guessed that.
But it's interesting also that a lot of people that are disc-philes, they think that if you make a lot of hits that somehow you're a sellout. I don't necessarily agree with that. But I know that like Meghan Trainor, she made that song No because the record people said, make a hit. And she hates the song. Billy Joel, some of his biggest hits, he hates because they're kind of poppy and they're made to be hits. So I think there's a difference between an album that we like because it's pop and catchy and what the artist looks at as a critical success. I don't always hear it, but there is a difference between music files, between a critical success and a commercial success.
We talked about that with the movies too. Like, I hate this idea that popularity like mars the art and makes it less great, because if you hit something popular, you obviously are doing something that's, like you said, like that's a sellout level or kitschy, cliche, or you're tapping into a theme that means you're not going the deep way you should. I hate that mentality. In fact, I think when you get something that's a hit and somebody finds something like chemical that like reacts in people's brains that makes it stick that way, kudos that you did exactly what music is supposed to do. You tricked my brain into forgetting about everything else for a minute. That's what music's supposed to do. And you created something wonderful. Congratulations.
To your point, Matthew, when you think about commercial versus critical, like in 2006, the nominees for the Best Picture by the Academy Awards, by the Academy, people that are theoretically supposed to know about movies. The nominees were Brokeback Mountain, Capote, Good Night and Good Luck, Munich, and the winner, Crash.
Capote's a terrible biopic.
Nowhere to be seen on that list for Best Picture nominees is perhaps the best movie ever made, Talladega Nights. So clearly the Academy, they understand what they like, which is bad, sad, awful movies, as opposed to what I like. Huh? Foreign, same thing. What I like, which is fun, funny, well-acted movies with action and a great plot.
And really no script for Talladega Nights. They just ad-lib. Will Ferrell likes to ad-lib a lot of his stuff.
It was the best acting ever.
Another great example for me is I was raised with an unhealthy respect for The Princess Bride. And that movie was a critical failure.
Yeah, right. But it was a good movie, right?
Was it really?
Genius movie. It's a genius movie. It should be studied by people as how to, maybe if you don't have a ton of money, just craft something beautiful despite the fact.
Well, you even look at this year's nominees for the Academy Awards. We did that. We did the whole, well, you weren't here for that. That was Brenden Schaeffer, right? Where we put up like the different movies with a description. I had not even I had seen on TikTok like descriptions of the movies.
On Hulu, by the way. You can knock out the Best Picture award winner that we talked about, Enola, which I explained the synopsis. Makes no sense.
There's a lot of things where it feels like they just purposely try to be like highbrow and that we know more than you.
You know what? I fall asleep with movies with subtitles. I just can't do it. Damian Fowler.
That's too far.
Yeah,
you gotta be able to watch a movie that requires subtitles every once in a while.
No,
really? No. What about movies that are hard to hear, and so you have to turn on the CC to understand what's going on? Does that count as a subtitle?
Then he's just blasting the volume. That's what it sounds like.
Because as much as I love The Godfather, I can't watch it without the CCs. Because there's sometimes where I lose like some of the sound quality and it dips out, and I'm like, I don't know what's being said right now.
On all kinds of sports shows, there is a Spectrum commercial with a little kid who has a project due the next day, and his dad walks into his room and says, "Hey, how fast is our internet?" or something like that. Have you guys seen this?
No.
Okay.
I have not.
I cannot understand the kid at all. The kid is like a mumble mouth.
I triggered something in Randy's brain right
It's a
now.
Spectrum commercial.
I gotta find this.
And
I gotta find this.
And it's so the dad says, "Yeah, we've got fast internet. Let's get to work on this project." I don't even know, but the kid is a total mumble mouth, and I can't understand a word that he says. It's not a lot of. It's a Spectrum commercial. You'll see it on a sporting event.
Okay.
Okay, so let me get to this. Randy, do you still blame the Patriots for killing the Rams' potential dynasty? I kind of blame the coach, because when you don't have one person you drafted make the team, that's what did it. Well, that team, that particular Rams team, had Adam Archuleta starting at safety, that had Tommy Polley starting at linebacker. I think both defensive tackles, Big Grease and Damian Lewis were there.
I think he's maybe more referring to the failure of them to be able to continue winning in 02, 03, 04.
Here's the thing. Everything fell apart, and everybody got upset with each other after that Super Bowl loss. And remember, that's when Jim Hanifin retired as well, because he was ticked off that Mike wouldn't run the ball during the Super Bowl. But ultimately, no, the Rams could have done better things to win the game. But when the Patriots did cheat, and they did, they got fined and they gave up a first-round draft choice because of their cheating. I heard a story from, I don't think this. Let me put it this way: I heard a story that that Sean Payton brought a member of that Rams staff in for a visit one time to the Saints practice facility in New Orleans, and was walking him through the halls and said, "Hey, you want to see where the Patriots set up their camera to cheat on you guys?" There it was, where the clear view, because Hazlitt and Belichick were buddies. So it wasn't just the Saturday; it was all week that the Hazlitt allegedly was getting tape of the Rams practices and providing them to Belichick all during the week. So yeah, I do blame the Patriots for cheating, and then everything fell apart because Mike got mad at Jay got mad at Mike. Their ring ceremony was at minicamp. They put all their NFC championship rings on a table, and players just went in and grabbed their rings. That was their ring ceremony.
So, one more time.
So
who is
crazy.
Who is this person in the Saints who did this? Jim Hazlitt?
Hazlitt, was buddies, and he allowed the Patriots camera person to go into the perfect office. The Rams were practicing at the Patriots at the Saints facility, and Hazlitt said, "Yeah, you just have run of the building. You can go wherever you want." For a Patriots person, well, the Rams were practicing there.
Do you know how rare it is at 33 years old to just at 11:30 in the middle of the day just have somebody added to the list of people you hate with a blood-curdling passion? I wasn't a big Jim Hazlitt fan before this morning when I woke up, but I'm going to go to bed today and with an Arya with whispering list.
Yeah,
and Jim Hazlitt's going to be on it after I hear this.
There you go.
Good Lord.
Hey, kids, we want to make sure that you've subscribed to our YouTube page and like this video. And if you haven't already, go to sportshubstl.com and sign up for the Hub newsletter sent to your inbox twice a week and anytime St. Louis sports news breaks. You'll be the first to know about Sports Hub STL events and merchandise, get exclusive content and prize opportunities, and more. While you're on the site, check out all the St. Louis sports content, including game recaps, programming highlights, sports news and opinion, gambling tips, and more. It's all on the website at sportshubstl.com. Brooke, did you have fun today?
Yes, and I had cookies.
I did too. And the cookies were great. Matthew, did you have one of your cookies yet?
I did, yes.
Good. I'm glad. Was it good?
When you say brownie, I didn't expect it to be a crunchy cookie.
Oh, okay.
I thought there'd be a little give to it, it'd be a little softer.
But the middle's soft, right?
No, it's all crunch.
Oh,
okay.
That's what I'm saying. It's because you tell me brownie and caramel. I'm expecting some give in the cookie, and it was wholly crunchy. I don't know about you guys.
I want brownie.
Prefer a
I
soft
want
cookie
chewy.
to a crunchy.
Totally. Yep.
yeah.
Great job today by our audio video engineer and producer, the one, the only Matthew Rocchio. Thank you for being a part of our program. And we'll be back at it at 10. Don't forget, Cards Up 365 after the Cards and Nationals today. For Brooke and Matthew, I'm Randy. See you tomorrow.